Hi everyone, welcome to today's InsideUni event. We're really excited today to have 6 students from Wales with us, from Oxford and Cambridge, to talk us through the application process from Wales and a little bit about their experiences. I'm Tommy, I'm going to be chairing today. I'm one of the co-founders of InsideUni. Just to give a little overview while people join on YouTube about how this is going to work. So the event today is going to last for about an hour. And so you can obviously go and leave as you like. We're going to start off just quickly with a little introduction to what we're going to be talking about today, and then move on to some day in the lives by 3 of the students on the call who are going to tell us a little bit about what day-to-day life is like at Oxford and Cambridge from their perspectives. And then we're going to jump straight into the questions, because that's the bit that people find really useful. So we've got a few pre-submitted questions that people have put in already. And so we'll go through them and make sure that we cover all of those. And then what we'd really love is that when people are listening, at any point, so if it's about something that they've thought already or something that comes up when they're listening, we'd really like for you to put in the live comments section just a little question or message which we could then respond to. And our moderator, Helena, is manning the comments section in the live stream. So if you put it in there, she'll copy it over to us and we'll make sure that we give an answer if we can. So once we've gone through all of those questions, that will take us probably until about 10 to 5. When we hit 10 to 5, we're just going to do a little section there where everyone on the panel is going to recommend one resource they use when they're replying. So that might be something nice for you to take away as you go away from this video. And then we'll end it probably just before 5 o'clock. So that's how it's going to work today. And basically, the scope of the call is that we're going to talk about what it's like as a Welsh student at Oxford and Cambridge, and also particularly about the application process, because that's probably where most of you guys are right now, or where you might want to be in the future. And before we jump into that, I'm just going to give a really quick overview of what InsideUni is as well, because I'm aware that lots of people won't know what that is. So it's basically a not-for-profit student project, which is in Oxford and Cambridge, which aims to make the application process fairer. And the way that we try and do that is by giving application advice from current students to current applicants via a free website, so that people can make sure that they have the information they need to do a good application. So you can get up to 2,000 interview testimonies on there, filterable by college and subject across Oxford and Cambridge. You can get subject guides where current students have said about useful resources, and you could also get more general resources like mentoring scheme suggestions and information about finances and bursaries. So we'd really recommend going to insideuni.org when you're applying and checking it out. So that's enough for me. I'm really excited to hand over to our panel to introduce themselves. So Emma, did you want to kick off?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Emma. I'm first year doing linguistics at Cambridge and I'm from Caredig.
Hey, I'm Shadab. I have just finished my 4th year studying natural sciences and I specialize in chemistry. I'm from Cardiff and I'm in Newport at the moment. I took a year out during my studies between 3rd and 4th year to work for the Students' Union, to work with the university to get applications from everyone, from underrepresented backgrounds, disadvantaged backgrounds, etc. So I have a bit of an insight into how the university works as well.
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a 2nd year lawyer at Fitzwilliam College in Cambridge. I come from Rhyl in North Wales, and similarly to Shadab, I'm currently the target and access officer on what's called the JCR in my college, which is basically a student council that actually gets stuff done sometimes. So similarly, I have an insight into how the admissions process works on a college level.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a 2nd year biochemist at Oxford and I'm from Wrexham, North Wales.
Hi, I'm Abbie. I am a 1st year scientist at Oxford. I go to St. Peter's College and I'm from Wrexham. Mary's my sister, so.
Hi, I'm Caredig. I'm a 1st year chemical engineer by natural sciences at Cambridge, and I'm in Magdalen College, and I'm from Aberystwyth originally.
Great. So now everyone's had a chance to introduce themselves. Just to say again, I'm Tommy, so I'm the chair. I graduated from Cambridge in 2018 doing HSPS, which is Human, Social, Political Sciences, so politics, international relations, social anthropology. But I have no link to Wales, so I will disclaim that now. I'm just chairing for today. So now we're going to go into some day in the lives from 3 of the panel, Jack, Mary and Caredig. So Jack, did you want to kick off?
Yeah, great. So I'll try and give you a really quick sort of view of what a day in the life is like in Oxbridge. Weirdly, it's almost a bit hard to try and describe what a day in the life is like, because your days are really quite varied and can be really, really different from one day to another. But I think typically a really sort of standard sort of day tends to be you'll wake up in the morning. For myself in law, I probably have 2 to 4 lectures in a day. I might have a supervision on as well in the day. So supervision is essentially just small group teaching with an expert in the field. In law, no bigger than a group of 4 to 1 supervisor usually. And then if I have any work to do or reading, more often than not in law, I'll probably go to the college library to do that. I'll probably get food in the buttery or cook for myself. The buttery is just the Cambridge word for dining hall, really. And I probably play pool in the JCR room, which is a common room with a lot of my friends. I waste an awful lot of time playing pool. But yeah, so that's pretty much the average day as it goes.
Yeah, so as a STEM student, we have quite a lot of contact hours. So like my typical day in Oxford looks like waking up at 8:30 for a 9 a.m. lecture. And my college at Oxford is Somerville College. So this is where I live and where I eat and things like that. And it's about a 5-minute walk to the science area. So I can wake up late and make it to lectures on time. I normally have like 2 to 3 lectures in the morning, normally 9 till 11 or 9 till 12. And then my afternoons vary, it sort of depends on the day. So sometimes we have labs, which will normally go from like 11 till 5, but you're not normally in them that long. It's just they pencil in that amount of time for you. Or we might have tutorials, which are like Oxford versions of supervisions. And yeah, or just like sit in my room and write up some notes or do essays or problem sheets. And problem sheets are basically just questions based on the topics you've been doing that week, I suppose. And then in the evening, it's very, very varied too. Sometimes I go to the pub with my friends, or I do a cappella, so I might go to an a cappella rehearsal, or maybe clubbing, because there's quite a good night scene in Oxford. But yeah, no 2 days are the same. They're all very varied, and it's quite an exciting life, really.
So usually I have to wake up at 7:30 because it's quite a walk to my lectures that are also at 9 a.m. But then I usually have about 2 lectures that are about an hour each every day. And then sometime, like every other day, I'll also have a sciences practical. And then in the afternoon, usually I will either have a supervision or a chemistry or physics practical. So my supervisions only last an hour, and the practicals can last up to about 3 or 4. Like I said, they mostly pencil in that amount of time. It can take as long as it takes. And then afterwards, I'll usually work on any example sheets or essays that I have to do. And if I have all my work done, I'll then socialize for the rest of the day and eat in the canteen.
Great, thanks guys. So yeah, as you all hear, there's 3 different people, 3 different days, and so it's really depends on what you want to do when you're at Oxford or Cambridge as to what you can do with your day. So it's flexible in some ways. So now that we've heard an introduction to everybody and heard some day in the lives as well, we're just going to move on to the main section now of the event, which is the questions. So we've had some questions that have been submitted in advance. So we'll run through those first. We'll probably have 1 or 2 people answering each question, just so that there's a couple of different perspectives on each one. And then, as I say, it would be really great if you can submit comments via the YouTube comment section and any questions that you've got. Helena in the comment section will pick them up put them into our sheet, and we'll try to answer them. And just to say before we start as well, as a little reminder really, when we're answering the questions, we are just 6 students, and there are our own personal opinions and experiences. So we'll try our best to be objective, but just remember that for especially things to do with the admissions process and all of the current up-to-date requirements, the best thing is to go to the university's official website, which we'll post in the links below. So yeah, as I say, this is mainly the student perspective, but hopefully that will be really useful for you today. So yeah, Shadab, did you want to kick off with the questions in this section?
Cool. So the first question is about the Oxbridge application as a whole and the process. So I'll try and be as quick as possible, but also give you some key dates. So to apply to any university in the UK, you need to fill in the UCAS application form. And this goes to everywhere, not just Oxford or Cambridge. The deadline for this is in January, but key point, if you're applying to Oxford, Cambridge, or for medicine, veterinary medicine, or dentistry, you will need to apply before 6 p.m. on the 15th of October. Definitely remember this. Make sure anyone you're living with remembers this, and your teachers know this, because they all have to fill in some forms too. So remember the date, 15th of October. That is the deadline for Oxford and Cambridge and some other courses. As part of the UCAS deadline, application form, before the deadline, you'll need to fill in your prior grades, so GCSEs, and also if you have any AS marks, then those too. Obviously, with the situation now, those are a bit difficult, but whatever you do have, you'll have to put on the form. Anything you have, put it all in. You'll also have the chance to put in disabilities in that form. I want to stress, please do put them in. They're not going to disadvantage you in any way. It is just for you to know that if you need any reasonable adjustments, like extra time, you will have that in the application process. So please put it in. You'll also have to have a teacher write your reference, which is why I said make sure they know that you have an early application deadline, because they'll need to write a reference for you as part of that process. And the big part of the UCAS application form is the personal statement. This is the one that everyone sort of focuses on, and it is not too long, I can't remember the exact number of words, but it's a statement about you showing your interest in the subject, why you're passionate about it, etc. We can talk a bit more about that if you want, how to write one. But basically, you just want to show that you're interested in it. You've done work outside of your normal school lessons to show that you're interested in it. And it can be used as a starting point for interviews to make you feel comfortable. Sometimes it can form the basis of your interview. Other times it will just be used to ease you into sort of things. So yeah, that is the biggest part of it. And we can talk more about that later. As well as registering the UCAS application forms, you have to register for tests. So there are pre-interview assessments. So these are tests that you take before you come for an interview. And there are also at-interview assessments. For the pre-interview assessments, you'll have to register before the 15th of October again. I'm stressing this. Please make sure you register and your teachers know to register you, because I know people have missed the deadline because they didn't know about it. So remember the 15th of October for tests and also the UCAS forms. The tests, one thing I want to say about them is that you should really rescale your, expectations. You're probably, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, you're scoring really highly in your tests normally, or doing quite well. These tests are designed for all of the people applying to Oxford and Cambridge. So if you get 50%, 60%, that is a really, really good score. So just bear that in mind when you are taking the practice tests, which are all available on the website. You might also have to submit some written work. So this is normally an essay that you've done as part of your normal work. You don't write a new one just for the application process. This is just homework that you've done for your teachers. They've marked it and you just send that in, and that's all you do, nothing else extra. If you have written your homework in Welsh, you can translate it into English and then send that, or you'll have to translate it into English. So bear that in mind. Then once that's submitted, by the 15th of October, you have a week to fill in an extra form for Cambridge, which is the supplementary additional questionnaire. And it basically asks for things like class sizes, the modules you've studied, exact scores, etc. And you can also write additional personal statements. if you're applying for a course that doesn't exist anywhere else, say natural sciences at Cambridge, but then you're applying for chemistry everywhere else, like I did, then you write your personal statement just for chemistry, for your UCAS personal statement, and then you get an extra form for your additional words that you want to say about natural sciences specifically. So remember that as well. Yeah, so I think that's the brief overview of the UCAS application form and the extra work you'll have to do. And then you'll have interviews, which are generally one day at Cambridge, which is 1 or 2 interviews, 20 to 40 minutes long. And at Oxford, it can be a few days at lots of different colleges. I think I'll leave that there because that was a lot of things to take in. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below and we can clarify anything that wasn't clear. Hope that helped.
Thanks, Shadab. That was really, really useful. And I would just reiterate as well that I think it's really important to remember as well that Oxford and Cambridge can be different and that they can change each year as well. So as I said before, it's really good as well to go on the official websites when you're applying, depending on if it's Oxford or Cambridge, just to check what the latest kind of rules and regulations are, just so you don't miss anything out. But we're really lucky to have Shadab, who knows them in so much detail. So that's a great starting point just then. Yeah, Jack, did you want to cover the next one?
Yeah, so the next question we've got is it worth applying to medicine as a state school applicant to either Oxford or Cambridge from Wales and a Welsh medium school? The answer to that is very much yes. One of my friends at Fitzwilliam College, he's doing medicine. He comes from Anglesey and he studied at a Welsh medium school where some people studied in Welsh medium, some people studied in English medium. It's not a disadvantage in the slightest. The upshot is that you still get the A levels that you get, whether you study them in English language or Welsh language, and you're not prejudiced in any way by doing that. So, I mean, the upshot, yeah, don't be discouraged by the fact that you go to a Welsh medium school. In some ways, it probably helps you as well because you develop a second language, and you know there's some linguistic skills that you pick up along the way with that. So really don't be put off if you do go to a Welsh medium school.
Yeah, I'll second just what Jack said. So I have a friend who studies in medicine at Gonville and Keys in Cambridge. And yeah, she obviously, like my school, so I didn't actually go to a Welsh medium school, but I went to like quite a small Welsh sixth form. And you know, she didn't get like loads of help from our school, but you know, there's loads of schemes you can apply to. So she applied to like Target Oxbridge, which like gave her lots of help when she was applying to medicine. So it's good to look at different schemes that you can apply to. I'm sure we'll bring them up later, but definitely, like, you know, don't see coming from a Welsh school or a Welsh medium school as a disadvantage in any way whatsoever. You know, if you want to apply, go for it.
So another question that was asked is learning to use English technical language instead of Welsh a difficulty that you'll encounter? So this is something that I have personally had to deal with because I did all my A-levels through Welsh, and of course a lot of my courses involve a lot of technical language, and really it is a difficult, there is some difficulty to transition, but once you sort of get into the swing of it, you kind of start to, you will transition over to it and sort of become much better at learning all the terminology. And by the end of your first year, I can't imagine you'll be struggling much with it at all. But yeah, that's all I can think of.
So the next question is, can you prepare independently if your school isn't supporting much? So personally, I went to a massive sixth form college and we had like 60 applicants to Oxbridge and only 2 people to help us. So I found basically you kind of have to approach it in a different way. I think I personally just kept asking my teachers for help, like even if they weren't like, even if it wasn't necessarily their job to help out with higher education, I just like asked loads of them, and lots of them rejected me, so just keep asking. Also, like, try to find as many opportunities as you can on your own. So I did like Seren Network, summer school, I did the Beacons project, the Hay Festival. So there's like so many things you can do. And yeah, just try to find like as many resources as you can online to kind of complement what you're not necessarily getting, because there may not be enough like time and resources for you from your school, and just kind of make the most of what you can get.
Yeah, and that's a really good answer. And I think I would just add to that as well, that if your school doesn't offer you very much support, but you still really think you'd like to apply, then definitely don't be put off by that. And don't think that the only way that you can get in to Oxford or Cambridge is if you have had a lot of support before. And so, as Emma was saying, there's lots of really good programmes out there, lots of which are means tested or free. So you'll be able to get on them no matter your circumstances. And I think also, this is a bit of a plug for the InsideUni website as well, is there's lots of good ideas on there as well about the types of things that you might be able to do to prepare, not least reading through some of the interview testimonies we've got on there already. So yeah, there's lots out there online that's free, like Emma was saying, and I think that's a really important point for this one. Jack, I think you're going to talk a bit about law at Cambridge.
Yeah, so a question came in basically about what studying law at Cambridge is like. So obviously I only study law at Cambridge, so can't speak truly and say this is a proper reflection of Oxford, though from what I've heard it's pretty similar and that they're quite similar experiences. The only difference being is that in Oxford they don't do second year exams in law. So the second year exams that you would do in Cambridge end up being done in the last year, as well as last year material too. I think starting on how law is at Cambridge, it's taught through lectures, supervisions, and for your own sort of reading and self-independent learning. There's an awful lot of focus on the reading, and there is a lot of focus on the sort of independent learning, because there is a lot of material. So there has to be some sort of motivation to do that. I would say it's quite intense. I can't lie about that. It's an intense course, and it's known for being one of the more intense courses available in Cambridge, but it's manageable. I find that within my college, we work together as a team on certain supervisions where we'll divide up the work, for example, or we'll note share. And that really does help make it a more sort of manageable experience. But I would say don't be put off by the fact that it's intense. I find that one of the good things about the course. I find it really rewarding, and it makes it quite enjoyable as well, because you feel like you really are getting a proper education, and that really is bolstered at Oxford and Cambridge, who hold quite a large monopoly on the sort of best legal minds and academics in the country. You find that you'll be reading textbooks that tend to be authored by lecturers that you go and get lectured by. And the people that you get supervised by often are authority on a lot of things. I'm not quite sure whether there's any specific details that people want to know about law. So if you just drop them in the comments, I'm more than happy to address them in a more focused way. But I think just talking generally, it is quite work heavy, but it's manageable and it's really enjoyable. And I think it's one of the best courses available for study.
So our next question is basically, are there any job opportunities at Oxford and Cambridge as you study? So in terms of Oxford, there are actually quite a few opportunities through like access and outreach schemes. So Mary and I are actually outreach ambassadors for the undergraduate admissions department of the university. So so there's some things you can just volunteer for. But other things like the UNIQ summer schools, which is definitely something you guys should look to apply to. But yeah, the UNIQ summer schools, the student conferences, things like this. You get paid quite decent money to help out with these. Also, in terms of just like some colleges, I know my college does it, but like some student-run bars might also pay you to like do like a shift at the bar or something like that. So there's lots of different things you can get involved in. In terms of having like a part-time job, normally they sort of discourage you from having one. That being said, you can have one if you really want one, but yeah, like they sort of, yeah, they discourage you from having it because it takes a lot of, your degree takes a lot of time out of your days. So yeah, that's what I've got to say.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on that. There's a lot of really random opportunities that come up as well. So I got given book vouchers, which I know isn't quite as good as money, but when you do such a book intensive course as law, it's just as good as money. I got some book vouchers for reviewing the library website. So I literally went to the library, spent 10 minutes chatting with a librarian, pointing out where I thought the library was a bit rubbish for a user. And I got given, I think it was 10 or 20 quid of book vouchers. So it was really, really good. Picking up on quickly as well on the part-time work, you can do it. But the reason you get discouraged from doing it, especially I know in Cambridge and Oxford, is that there is a lot of financial support available, which we're going to touch on later. But the idea being is that in Oxford and Cambridge, you shouldn't need to be in financial distress, and that there will be a lot done for you, especially as Welsh students with your finance arrangements as well, which we'll discuss later. You shouldn't have to worry too much about needing to do part-time work.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that you can do if you really want to earn money and do something that you are passionate about is join the Students' Union. So you can take a year out and join as one of the sabbatical officers. So for me, I took a year out and helped the university, Cambridge University, to address diversity issues and try to get people in from places that don't send many applicants. And that was a full-time job. I took a year out from my studies and I did that for a year. Which I guess isn't the point. You don't do that, part-time, but there is also things that you can do that you enjoy, get paid, and then go back into your studies as well after. But I think the next question, as Jack was mentioning, is that there is lots of finance available for you, so you don't have to do any work, because you shouldn't have to find a job to be able to afford to go to university. And Cambridge is actually very generous with that. So I'll let Jack start that one off.
Yeah, so as Welsh students, we do enjoy a really quite unique generosity in that our government backs us really quite well on the student finance front. So in Wales, every student studying away from home will receive £9,000 of maintenance. The only thing that your household income dictates is the proportion of that is a grant as opposed to a loan. So at the maximum end of grant, you get £8,100, I believe, of grant. I think next year actually you get £9,250 because of inflation. So we enjoy, I think it's the most sort of generous package available in the UK, really. And that has no impact on the bursaries that you receive from Cambridge too. So in Cambridge, the bursaries are assessed on household income again, and they're rewarded at a maximum of £3,500. You also, dependent on college, have different levels of college bursaries and hardship funds that are awarded based on household income and other living circumstances. So when you sort of take the time to do the maths and have a think about how you go into university, the need for a part-time job, in my experience, at the very least, fades away, because once you account for external scholarships that you might receive, all these different finance options, you really are quite comfortable, and they're able to not just sort of survive in Cambridge, but actually live and have the full experience that you should be having if you are going to university. I think Shadab has a couple more points to say, so I'll just hand over to Jack.
Yes, I think Jack has mentioned that there are lots of financial contributions to you, so you don't have to think about that. But those are general as well. But there are specific things. So if you need money for a diagnosis, for a learning difficulty you might have, or a disability, there's a fund for that in the university. Sports, if you need to buy sports kit or equipment and you don't have the money for that, colleges are more than happy to provide for that as well. So it isn't just about, studying and being at university. It is about, taking as much of the opportunities that are available that you can. And the colleges really do want to support you in doing that. Even languages, in first year I did French, and college paid for half of my course because of household income and stuff like that. So you can access all these different sources of support for everything, not just to study and live at the university.
And I just wanted to add to that, if you do ever find yourself in financial trouble, usually the colleges are quite happy to give you hardship funds to help you out of a tricky situation and or stop you from struggling. They aren't necessarily infinite or anything like that, but it's something that's there for you if you need it.
So the next question is about what colleges are like and what the college systems are. So college is just basically where you eat, sleep and work. It's got its own library. It's full of people from different subjects. It's basically like a lot smaller version of a campus university, but you can still interact with other colleges. It's where you have all your supervisions and stuff as well. And also your director of studies who kind of organises your course is there too. But also an important thing to remember with the college system is that it doesn't really matter what college you apply to. I think definitely, don't play a numbers game with it at all. Don't look at statistics too much, because the pool system, so you have the winter pool system, which means if your application pre-A levels maybe isn't good enough, that college can get sorted for, you can still get into another college. And if your A levels aren't quite good enough for your requirements, you can still get into another college. So don't worry too much about what college you're picking. And also you have things like the open application system as well.
Yes, so the open application system is one that I chose. When it came to applying, truthfully, I wasn't prepared enough to make a choice of this is for college, sort of, pin myself to that mast and say I dedicate myself to this college. So I just put myself in for the open application and thought, well, uni can decide where I go. I was quite happy to go anywhere, really. And I feel now that I was really lucky to end up where I was. But the open applications is a perfectly legitimate way of doing it, and you're not disadvantaged by putting in an open application. There seems to be some stigma sometimes that by putting in an open application, you're less likely to get in, or that you suffer a material disadvantage for it, which you don't. If you really are struggling with a decision, then the open application is worth doing. If I did again, I truthfully probably wouldn't do an open application, and I probably would have taken the time personally to research the colleges more than I had, so that I could make a more informed decision. But if you do an open application, don't worry about it. It really will be fine.
So the next question is like quite a popular question for applicants, and it's how to write a competitive personal statement. So they say for Oxbridge and Cambridge, Oxbridge, that you should do like an 80-20 split, where it's 80% academic and 20% non-academic. I think my personal statement was more 90%, 10%. But I think that it's really important to add supercurriculars. So supercurriculars are things that you do outside of your like A-level subjects, but it's related to your subject. So things like listening to podcasts, reading books, summer schools and things like that are really, really impressive. But I think the really important thing to note is that it's not about how much you do. It's not about listing hundreds of books you've read, but it's maybe listing one or two and talking about what you've got from them, like why it's important, what you've read is important, and why it's relevant to your subject. Does this contradict anything else you've said, etc. And basically just showing your critical and analytical thinking skills, because that's what tutors at Oxford want. They don't just want academic robots that just absorb information and can't use it and apply it. So if you can show that you can use information you've learned and apply it and really think about it, then that's going to make like a more competitive personal statement than somebody who's just listed hundreds of things they've done without any talking about it in any more detail.
I think that is, exactly the thing the admissions tutors always say. People say, I read this book, this book, this book, and this book, but what did you take away from it? What did you learn? It's so much better to talk about one chapter in a book that you've read and how you engaged with it. What did it say? What did you think about it? Did you read something else to find the other viewpoint from that, paper? I don't know, whatever it is. And I want to stress that it doesn't have to be, you know, a 300-page book or anything like that. It can be a journal, you know, 2 pages on the internet about a specific scientific process. It can be a podcast. It can be a TV channel. If you've watched anything, read anything, it can be used as long as you've said what you've taken away from it and how you've engaged with the subject. So some good resources, because it's easy to say, do supercurricular activity or, you know, read around the subject. Where do you start? Cambridge University have launched a website called MyHE Plus, and that is a starting point for you to just choose a subject, you know, maths, biology, linguistics, subjects you've never heard of or have heard of before. You click on it, and then it'll give you a 1-page PDF, a 2-page PDF that you can read an intro to a subject about. If you find it interesting, it'll give you some links at the bottom saying, here are some more things that you can read to write about in your personal statement. I wrote a guide during my year out, which tells you how to write a personal statement for different subjects. And that will be in the comments, I guess, or in the description somewhere, posted for you to have a look at. InsideUni, which is hosting this event, also has all these different resources signposted. So you can read all of those and see what you can do. But I just want to stress, it doesn't have to be a big book. It can be little things as long as it shows that it sparked an interest in what you've taken away from it. There are also outreach activities you can join in. So the Oxford UNIQ program, Sutton Trust Summer Schools, the shadowing scheme that CUSU runs, which is the Students' Union at Cambridge every year. These will give you an insight, either a lecture or, you know, a supervision, practice supervision, where you can say, I went to this lecture, I learned this, etc., etc. So it is showing, not telling, I think, is the key thing when writing a personal statement for Oxford and Cambridge. But yeah, I think there'll be a link posted to the guide that you can read, and also visit InsideUni to see more.
Great. So the next question we have got is there a good Welsh community at Oxford and Cambridge? So the answer to that is yes. Again, really, really good community. Obviously, at times you do feel outnumbered. It feels like everywhere you go, people are from London and that no one comes from Wales. We are smaller in number naturally, but because of that, we are a really, really tight-knit community, I found. Cambridge has a Welsh society and we do a lot together. So we do Welsh bar crawls at the start of term. When the rugby's on, the football, we go and watch that in one of the college bars. And again, you quite often find that you're surrounded by people in England shirts while you're stood there cheering for Wales. But that's okay. You have to have confidence in that scenario when you know that you're backing the right team. But we do an awful lot together as a society. We recently recorded a video actually that quite a lot of you might find helpful and is available on YouTube. Basically, what it's like to be Welsh in Cambridge. So me and Emma are both in that video, and we'll find a way to make sure that you guys can access that video. Might end up in the description with some of the other stuff, but it's a really good video and sort of informs on what it's like to be Welsh at Cambridge. And I'm sure the experience is quite similar at Oxford. I'm sure Abbie or Mary might be able to pick up on this.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I first came to Oxford, there was a freshers bar crawl. So all the Welsh freshers like joined together and we went to different college bars, and it was really, really nice to just get to know people and know you're not like the only Welsh person there. And I met two Welsh earth scientists, which is really, really cool because they study at St. Peter's, and Abbie also now studies at St. Peter's. So I got them to contact her and sort of give her some tips and tricks for applying to Oxford and things. And I think it's just really nice because it's a small community, which means that we really do have each other's backs, and that instead of having a really big community of lots of people, we all just do know each other, and it's really friendly and great atmosphere. So, but even if you're not Welsh, even if you're surrounded by people that aren't Welsh, you don't feel left out. Like most of my friends are English, and they don't see me any differently or treat me any differently because I'm Welsh. If anything, it's like quite a nice quirk to have to make you a little bit different. So yeah.
And also an absolute bonus if you can say llan by book and go silly or go. Get used to it because you will be asked to say it everywhere you go. Worth investing some time in saying that because people go, okay, can you say the train station name? Like go on, say it if you learn it, because like it will gain you massive advantage in social scenarios.
Okay, just to like agree with what Jack said, definitely learn that. But the next question is about what it's like to study a subject you can't do at A levels. So I do linguistics, and I think a really important thing to remember when you're picking like an obscure subject you've not done before is don't be afraid of it. I think a really big fear is that you don't have all the background knowledge, but be aware that once you get there, everyone's in the same boat. Like there is no A level in linguistics. No one else will like know loads more than you do. But definitely like keep reading it and be mindful that the small subjects do exist, and that it may be something you want to do. So I think I personally went to like master classes and stuff like that. And also there's things like, so on the SAQ, I know you can write a little bit sometimes if you want to go into like, so something like Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, you can write an extra little bit giving slightly more detail, whereas on your personal statement maybe you're applying for something completely different in other universities and stuff like that. But yeah, don't be afraid of small subjects, and definitely look into them if you're not absolutely set on any particular subject, because maybe that's what was waiting for you.
So yeah, I'll second definitely what Emma said, in that, don't be afraid to, look at, small subjects which you can't really take at A level. So for example, like earth sciences is something you can't really take at A level. So also be mindful, like to look at the prospectuses, like what are the required subjects. So for earth science, everyone had to do maths, but that was it. And then they ask for, biology, chemistry, physics, further maths, geography, geology. So like all these people come with these different backgrounds. And if you're worried about maybe being behind on like knowing something, so maybe you haven't taken chemistry at A level, don't worry, they always bring you up to speed with everything. So I know that my friends initially at the very beginning of the year were quite concerned with this, but we're all at the same level now. And so like, yeah, definitely don't let something like that put you off.
So I'm also doing quite an obscure subject at university, but one of the advantages of doing it at Cambridge specifically is that I've basically been able to sort of see what it's like to try other subjects at university level as well. So my specific degree is chemical engineering and natural sciences. So that means I do my first year in natural sciences, and I study chemistry, physics, maths, and earth sciences. So if I wanted to, I could carry on with any one of those four subjects, or actually any one of the three science subjects, sorry. But but despite how much I have enjoyed my first year, I'm still committed to carrying on with chemical engineering instead. And you don't even have to just do natural sciences in your first year for chemical engineering. You can also have the option of doing engineering as your first year. And if for some reason you aren't happy with carrying on with chemical engineering, you could then do other branches of engineering like mechanical or electrical. And these are all options that are open to Cambridge. And I'm not quite sure if you get the same sort of choice in Oxford, but it's definitely worth looking into these sorts of degrees if you're interested in sort of broad science or engineering like topics, but don't know what to specialize in yet.
So the next question is, what is the nightlife like at Oxford and Cambridge? So in terms of Oxford, it's a lot bigger than Cambridge. So I'd say that there's more things to do. I guess so. But so like Oxford has quite a lot of clubs and sort of like student specific nights. So the sort of most common ones are like Plush Tuesday, where Plush is basically an LGBTQ plus bar. Does some really cool cheap drinks. It's a really good vibe. It's a great night for students who identify as LGBTQ plus, but also for like any other students as well. And there's Park End Wednesdays, where basically anyone who knows Attic, you can go to. It's basically converted into Park End, and that's like a student night. There's Bridge, the Bridge Club. There's Fever. So all these like special days, you'll learn all these on Freshers Week as well. In terms of if you're not really a clubber, and there's like lots of bars, pubs, and like social hubs that you can go to as well. So like pubs is a big one, so you can go like pub crawls around Oxford. Sometimes the bars can be more expensive, but Oxford has, I know, 2 or 3 spoons, Wetherspoons, so like the cheap, so you can get relatively cheap drinks from them. And also they're just quite nice places where you can just like socialize. You can hire out like, you know, like rooms in bars and like, or town halls, etc. Also, if you're not really into like the whole drinking scene, you can go and watch shows and plays. So like there's the Oxford Playhouse, where they do some like really professional, high quality like shows from the students, which is really impressive. And I know that and also you can go watch things like a cappella. I know Mary will vouch for that one. And also if you want something more academic, you can go, there's always like societies are always holding like lectures and seminars. So I've been to talks from the Oxford Women in Business about, you know, starting, you know, your own business, and like Oxford Energy Society. It's all about, you know, zero emissions and stuff. So like there's always things going on. Like the Oxford social life, nightlife is like, it's so rich, it's so amazing. You know, people think that we just sort of lock ourselves in the libraries and just work day in, day out, but no, it's a very rich social life.
Yeah, so I can speak a bit for the Cambridge nightlife. I suppose it depends on what you've experienced so far. So like some of my friends who live in inner city come to Cambridge and go, oh my God, it's absolutely rubbish here. Whereas, you know, if you live really rurally and you don't have a club, then you might think it's like the best thing ever. But I think it really is about what you make it, really. And an awful lot of it depends on who you are with. So if you're out with your friends, I mean, some of the worst nights ever can become one of the best nights ever. And just like speaker as well, there are some things that do go on for specific communities, like the LGBT community. Fits my college, we did a BOP, which is just a college party basically in the bar. We did one of them for the LGBT community, and that went really well. You know, really enjoyable event. So, and a lot of places do. So there's this club night called Glitter Bomb in Cambridge, which is LGBT night, and that's really, really popular. Lots of people go to that. Talking on the theatre end of things, there's the ADC Theatre and the Corpus Playroom in Cambridge. There's a big Cam Dram scene, which is just Cambridge drama. So you get a lot of thespians who do more plays than they do academic study, and they sort of devote their life to theatre for our benefit. And obviously we also have the Cambridge Footlights, which is a really, really popular thing. So like past example, you know, like sort of Stephen Fry, for example, was a member of Footlights, John Cleese. And so it's really, really popular, well-established thing as well. So again, the nightlife really is quite varied. It is what you want. Like Abbie says, in Cambridge too, there's these sorts of non-drinking events that you can go to if you don't like drinking. I'm not a massive drinker, so I go to lots of these things where, you know, you might have lectures, or there might be debates on in debate societies. So it's just, you know, take a look, and you'll find things to do. Not every night's locked up in the library, buried in books. So you can really, really enjoy yourself as well.
Yeah, there's definitely scope for fun. The next question is the differences in subjects for the sciences. So at Cambridge, we have natural sciences, and at Oxford, you have single science courses. So chemistry, biochemistry, physics, etc. So the difference is in Cambridge, you study maths in your first year and then 3 additional modules. So I chose biology of cells, chemistry, and physics. There are so many different options. You can do earth sciences, material science, etc. So new subjects and ones that you thought you haven't met before. So this just gives you a chance to see what you actually want to study, because A levels are quite different to university level material. So I thought I'm going to do chemistry and physics, specialize in, you know, chemical physics and all the mathsy stuff. First year, I hated physics. I completely, you know, didn't do very well in the exams at all in physics, and then ended up doing biochemistry, neurobiology, and chemistry in second year, and then specialized in chemistry. So it's just giving you the chance to experience all the different sciences before you make a decision about specialization. They are 3 or 4 year courses, so by the time you get to the end of it, you do have a lot of knowledge specifically in the subject that you choose, and you can narrow down very quickly. So you don't get a disadvantage in any way in choosing the broad-based course. So Mary studies biochemistry, which she can talk about, and I only started doing biochemistry specifically in 2nd year, whereas Mary would have done it from the very beginning. So if you definitely know you want to do physics and that's what you want to do, then apply for a straight physics course. If you just want to experience things and you're unsure, then I do think natural sciences is a good way to test the waters a bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I say that it's great that the Cambridge course is so broad. You can take different aspects. If you're not 100% sure, then probably natural science is the best way to go. But I suppose I picked biochemistry at Oxford because I knew that biochemistry is exactly what I wanted to do. And also I think you find that the courses at Oxford, the science courses, are quite multidisciplinary. Like I've done quantum mechanics in biochemistry, and I've done things that are really like maths based and things as well. So it isn't just like biology and chemistry that's linked into biochemistry. But I would say that there isn't much choice in biochemistry. Everyone sort of does the exact same thing for the first 3 years until we do our master's project in 4th year, because it's an integrated master's degree. And I think that's quite similar across most of the sciences at Oxford. Everyone sort of does the same lectures, the same courses, and you don't have a choice about, there's not many optional modules. So I'd say if that's something that'll affect you, maybe choose Cambridge over Oxford. But also, like, I'm totally fine with having such a broad knowledge about biochemistry, because like I am passionate about it, and the more I know, the more helpful it will be for like my future career and things, and helping to decide which areas of science I'm most passionate about. So yeah.
So our next question is sort of related to the Welsh Bacc. So did any of us basically get asked about Welsh Bacc in our admissions interviews? So just a thing to note is that Welsh Bacc isn't actually like included in your offer for Oxbridge, and I don't think they actually like recognize it as like a they do recognize it as a qualification, but they don't see it alongside your A levels. So if you're thinking, you know, if it's a lot of work on top of your A levels, then maybe consider dropping it. But it's also something good to have. So for example, I wrote about it in my personal statement. So I do earth sciences. I talked about my research project on Yellowstone supervolcano in the United States. And they sort of asked me about this. They said, you know, like, and I said, oh, I got some transferable skills from doing my own research, getting primary information and stuff. So it's impressive in terms of the skills you can get and transfer over to university. And it's also something good to chat about in interviews. But yeah, if it's too much work on top of your A levels, then don't worry about it. Yeah.
So I didn't have the option to drop the Welsh Bacc during my A levels, so I had to soldier on through it. But in the end, I think it was useful. The project especially was the thing I could bring up at interview, and my interviewers were all quite interested in what I'd done and how I could talk about it. But I wouldn't say you're especially disadvantaged if you don't do it either. So seriously consider how much work you are putting into it, and if you can drop it and you want to, then you're welcome to go ahead and do it.
Great. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for the really good answers. That draws to a close the question part of the event. But if there are still questions that you have, then you can still put them in the YouTube comment section, and Helena will pick up on them. We can maybe see if we've got time at the end. And if we don't have time at the end, then you can feel free just to DM us on any of our social media, or email us at tommy@insideuni.org, and we'll try and get back to you with an answer if we can't cover it on the call. So just to finish the event off, we're just going to go around and everyone's going to give one resource that they found useful when they were applying. And Helena's going to post in the live chat if you want to have a look at any of them yourself. So Emma, did you want to start off on that?
Yeah, so a resource I found useful was, I think it was said earlier actually, the MyHE Plus website. It's got loads of like resources for different subjects on it.
I'd echo that just because I wrote some of the resources myself. But also the online courses, edX, EDX, and Coursera are free online courses. So I did one on medicinal chemistry, and that gave me a lot to talk about in my personal statement.
So one thing that as Welsh students you'll probably have access to is the Seren network. I really commend the Seren network. Without it, I don't think I probably would be in Cambridge now. So that'd probably be the resource that I would recommend that you really take hold of with two hands and go to as many of the events as possible. Really take on board the opportunities that it provides for you, because they really are helpful. Often staffed by people from Oxford and Cambridge. You cannot get better advice in terms of what you get from Seren. Again, I'd refer you back to the WelshSoc vid that I spoke about earlier. Hopefully there's a link to that. That's really helpful and quite jovial. And look out for JCR pages on Instagram as well. So my college has one, it's Fitzwilliam JCR. You can find that on Instagram, where we do day in the life, and we just do a lot of photos from college. So they're quite helpful too.
Yeah, I've got one or two resources. We've actually got a podcast coming out soon called Oxford from the Inside, and there should be like an Instagram link. So if you follow that on Instagram, you'll get updates for when the podcasts are released. But basically, me and Abbie are part of the team, and we're going to be interviewing people at Oxford about their application and life at Oxford. So you do get like a really broad overview of life at Oxford and things like that. And also, as mentioned above, Oxford UNIQ was so useful in deciding that we wanted to go to Oxford. It had like access to lectures from leading academics. You go down to Oxford for a week and live like a uni student. So yeah, I think that's really useful for state school students.
Some really useful resources are on Instagram. So following things like That Oxford Girl and That University Student. So they're really useful, like loads of blogs about, like personal Oxford students' lives. And also, I know that University Student also has Cambridge students as well. So definitely check that out. Mary and I also have our own Instagram account, which is called Sisters at Oxford. So we write our own blogs and stuff, so definitely check that out. And also there's the Sutton Trust summer schools, which you can apply to, which are just like UNIQ, but there's lots of different universities you can go to as well. And Oxford and Cambridge are also two of the universities that you can check out. So look at the Instagram accounts and the link for Sutton Trust as well.
So one thing I wanted to recommend, it's quite personally useful for me, but you might find it useful as well, is I want to study engineering.org. It was a great website for practicing engineering and maths and physics style interview questions that sort of the style that you might not have come across before. And it's a good resource even just to push yourself if you aren't intending on going to Oxbridge as well to get when you might receive an interview. Another useful resource is Isaac Physics, which is especially good for physics, chemistry, and maths questions. And then another resource that's probably a bit more generally useful is if you want a perspective into what life is like in Cambridge, then there are the various CambTweet accounts on Twitter. There's a general one and usually one for each subject as well. So there's plenty of resources there for you to get an experience of what Cambridge is like.
Great. Well, that's pretty much us done for today. We've been through all the questions that were submitted. And as I said, if you've got any others, just message us on social media and we'll really happily get back to you. And also some really useful resources just there at the end, which will be posted in the chat. I know Helen has been doing that as we've been going along. So just to make you all aware as well, so this event will be then put on YouTube after it's finished, so that if you did want to go back and look over anything, it will be available for you to have a look at, and obviously for other people to look at too. And this is part of a wider series that InsideUni is doing on lots of different parts of the application process and with lots of different groups of people. So we've got events with Black students is next week, and with estranged and care leavers, I think is the week following that. So you can look on our social media for that. They're certainly really exciting events. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you'll be able to find out about all the upcoming events and also lots of other useful resources that we post online. So we're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you go to InsideUni.org, you'll be able to find out more about us there. But in the meantime, thanks so much for coming today. If you've been watching live and if you're watching this in the future, it's been really exciting to hear from everyone on the panel today. I find it really interesting. So thanks to everyone for being on the panel. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you all soon. Bye.